Well, welcome into the best damn pond in the land. We're back. It's Tuesday. We're glad to have you here. Hey, we're doing our Blitz to 500. So Dan and I are giving away a $50 gift card for merch at Buckeye Corner. We are at 298, Dan. So two more. We hit the 300 mark for subscribers. So we're trying to get to 500 before August 31st, before the toe hits the rubber or hits the leather, I guess. Against Akron, the Zipperoonies. So, Dan, how are you? We've made some progress with our Blitz to 500, so I'm excited about that.
We were like, I don't know. I mean, I think we've increased subscriber by like 33% in the last week and a half. So that's awesome. We appreciate you guys. All cool stories start from humble beginnings. So
People like free stuff.
Trying to have some fun. I need to give a shout out to my boy Anon again. He asked folks or suggested folks follow me on Sunday when I was at the practice, and my followers just blew up, and I noticed that our subscriptions went up after that. So I'm hoping that when we drop this episode, there'll be another little bit of an uptick there. We can get that 500 number for that first milestone.
Yeah, man, it's been fun. Like, we're having a good time. And so if you guys don't know, Dan was at all 4 practices over the weekend. He drove up from Nashville very kindly and sweated it out in the hot summer sun. He got to shake Jim Knowles' hand, and then Jim wanted to hire him for linebacker, but he said he wasn't ready to do that yet. So Dan, you put out a tweet the other day, and just in reference to Connor Stallions
so here's the deal. I want to address one part of it, and then we can talk about the NOA either after it or maybe to end the show, whatever you want to do. So here's the deal. One of the comments I made was I made reference to the Penn State situation as an example of postseason bowl bans and wins being vacated occurring without players being ineligible.
Yeah.
Okay. Because Pete Thamel said that there was no precedent for that. Okay. I started to get messages from people, comments, whatever, on the actual tweet. That's fine. You're going to comment out in public. I'll reply most of the time. But I'm starting to get messages from people privately that are just repulsive. And I want to say this. If you think that I was comparing the offenses to each other and in some way insinuating that what Connor Stallions did was the same or worse than what Jerry Sandusky did to kids, then you're an idiot. You're a moron. And you don't know how to read, and you don't know how to think critically, okay? That says more about you than it does me for you to even think that's what somebody would mean by that type of a statement, okay? Yeah. So I would tell you to read between the lines, but you don't know how to read. And you certainly don't know how to think critically.
Yeah.
You're a moron if you think I'm offended by that. And that's all I'm not going to respond to it anymore. I'm not going to address it anymore. We'll post this clip on my timeline, and then that's it. You're a moron if you think that's what I meant.
Yeah. Definitely not what was being said there. So if you guys don't know, we're both parents too. So like there's a humanity element there. Like, just think a little bit. And I won't say any more than that. I'll just say it like that. So, Dan, I guess we could touch on the NOA really briefly. Like, we're not a Michigan show, but I think the thing to know, and Dan, you and I had a phone conversation yesterday, and
we'd have no chance to get to 500 subscribers if we were a Michigan show.
Fair. There's a couple things. Firstly, there's more and more information coming out that Michigan's the one that leaked the draft. Secondly, we're not going to know anything about punishment for at least 6 months, and Dan, you and I were hashing around the timeline. And I was like, so once they actually get it, they have 90 days to respond. And then there's 30 days. And then there's, so yeah, it's going to be a while, guys. Like there's nothing going to happen this season to Michigan. This season has to get played out.
Yeah. you are 6 months from the time that the NOA is issued, a minimum of 6 months before sanctions can be announced, unless there's a negotiated settlement. Okay. But what you're looking at is you're looking at an NOA gets issued, a school's got 90 days to reply. Most of the time they take all 90 days. And then the NCAA has 30 to 60 days to reply. And at that time is usually when they do sanctions. So you're looking at, 150 days. That's what, 6 months, 5 months?
5 months.
5 or 6 months from beginning to end. And like nothing's going to happen this season unless, again, they have a negotiated settlement. Having said that, it's really weird that this quote, I've never seen a draft get leaked before. So something's up. There's some theories out there that Michigan is leaking it themselves to either A, make the NCAA bad. I saw one theory, and this gets a little tinfoil hat-ish, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they leaked it to ESPN in exchange for ESPN downplaying it for now to lessen the blow and the public reaction until it actually is issued. But here's what we know. And then the other thing I want to mention is that this draft really, like the article that referenced the draft didn't really talk about the cheating scandal all that much. I mean, there's a summary of what started all this.
Yeah.
But it was focused on other aspects of things that were uncovered during the investigation. So, of course, that fan base said there's no mention of the cheating scandal, so they found no evidence of it. Can we just stop for a second and remember that there was a 13-page letter from the Big Ten that issued, indisputable and known evidence of a widespread cheating scandal?
Mm-hmm.
Like that all the evidence that was outlined in that letter in November still exists. It didn't disappear. It didn't go away. It wasn't proven to be false. It was already proven to be true.
Yeah.
And then we've got this draft, like what, 9 months, almost 10 months later. So you've got 9 to 10 months worth of investigation that took place. And you have to think that things were continually being found during that time frame and discovered during that time frame, or else they would have already issued an NOA.
Yeah.
So there's so much more that's going to be in that NOA than I think people realize. I'm looking forward to seeing it coming out, but the cheating scandal has not gone away for those of you that think it has.
Well, I think there's so much. I need to be careful how I word this. There's so much misinformation about what an NOA is and is not, and it's not going to have any punishments in it, guys. So anybody that tells you that like this punishment or that punishment or this has been decided is factually wrong. Like it's going to tell them what they are alleged of doing, and then
or proven to have done,
and with actual evidence, and then that's going to be sent to the university. So it is what it is. We have a little while. You guys might as well just like until the real NOA drops and we can all look at it, and then we can say, well, point one, Article 4, point 2, that's happened before and it resulted in 5 scholarship losses. Then you can start making some parallel lines. But right now we have, very little to nothing to go off of. And so I'm just kind of sitting back. I've got a little like hyped up when that dropped, the initial leak happened. But I'm like, okay, well, I'm more focused on our practice and what's going on with us. And Michigan can do whatever they're going to do because they're all going to deny it forever. We'll see. We'll see.
Let me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I had this picture, and it really summed everything up really, really nicely for us, Dan. And so I wanted to share it because I thought, people might like to see what this is. So if you're wondering and you're older, you remember a little bit about SMU, it's kind of, there's no difference. So, congratulations, guys. Bad things may happen.
Yeah. It does, it did have the line in there about lack of basically control of your program. They didn't call it lack of institutional control, which is what they used to call it. But, there was that statement along with the statement that they thwarted. I couldn't help. I was listening to Tom Orr and Bill Landis on the way home Sunday, and Tom Orr read that one passage in the letter or the article probably like 27 times.
Yeah.
And every time he said thwarted, I put a note on there. I said somebody's got to do a mashup of Tom saying thwarted.
Yeah.
I couldn't have said it that many times without messing up. But anyways, yeah, I mean, who knows? But going back to my initial comment about idiots and my tweet, I tweeted in response to the Pete Thamel and Pat McAfee video that was going around on, I don't know, was it yesterday?
Yeah.
And basically, and this is where the tinfoil hat theory comes in that, ESPN agreed to downplay it for now. And some people might say, well, why would ESPN downplay it? Or why would Michigan ask them to downplay it? Going back to the fact that we're still 6 to 7 months away from any sort of resolution on this, there is something to be lost if in Michigan's case, if it seems like they're going to get hammered. And that mainly is recruiting. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
they lost a recruit shortly after that was announced.
Yeah,
like it was like within 5 minutes.
I think that kid was going to be decommitting anyways. I think I do think that was coincidental.
Okay.
But if ESPN's out there saying the hammer's going to get dropped, then they could lose their entire recruiting class right now, right? So, again, I don't know if that's true. But in that video, it sure did seem like Thamel was trying to downplay it.
Okay.
And he made a couple statements that, there was no, he was saying that he doesn't see certain sanctions happening because, based on precedent. Well, there is no precedent for this. There's never been an on-field cheating scandal to this magnitude, ever. So I don't know how you can say that. Number two, he said there's no precedent for a postseason ban or vacating wins that didn't involve ineligible players. That's when I brought up the Penn State situation. That did not involve ineligible players. I am not saying the offenses are comparable. They're not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm simply saying that they have issued bowl bans and vacated wins in instances in which there were no ineligible players involved. Now, Penn State did sue, and they ultimately ended up getting those wins back, and that's because it was excessive. They took away like 10 years worth of wins, and that was outrageous. They did reduce the bowl ban from 4 to 2, but there was a bowl ban at the end of the day for something that happened without ineligible players. And then finally, the last point was he said it's really difficult to issue a postseason ban. And I linked an article from 2019 that went through 132 different postseason bans since the AP era started in the 1950s. So it just, I was really surprised that they were that careless with their statements when they were factually incorrect and so easy to be proven wrong. It just was weird. And I think that's where the Michigan released it to them in exchange for downplaying a thing came from, to be honest with you. It just was weird that they said the things they did, because it's just not true. They just weren't true.
Well, whether or not they, I guess whether or not it impacts their recruiting class this year or not, all of those kids, even especially if they enroll early, they could just jet in January.
Yeah.
Like it, I mean, you can basically you can stall as long as you want and hope people forget. It's not going to change anything.
Yeah, it's not ideal though for kids to. It's more likely a kid sticks around at least through spring at that point than just jetting. But who knows? I mean, we saw. We were the beneficiary of a coach leaving or something happening in January.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, there. I don't know. I mean, it seems like a stall tactic. That's what it seems like to me. But At any rate, so Dan, you were at practice on Saturday and
Yeah, let's talk
Sunday.
about fun stuff.
Yeah, you were at practice on Saturday and Sunday, as well as Thursday and Friday. But we dropped our content on Saturday morning for everybody for the first 2 days. So the second 2 days, it looked and sounded like a machine was just operating at an incredibly high level with the coaching staff and the players and the maximization of the reps. So I'd like to
Yeah, I mean,
just start with the quarterback reps. Can you
yeah,
tell us
sure.
what you
Let's
saw, how
set the
you
table.
felt?
Let's set the table for Saturday and Sunday. So Saturday they put on shoulder pads, which for all intent and purposes is full pads at this point, right?
Yeah,
I mean, these kids barely wear
they
anything
barely
in
wear
their
anything lower
pants
in their
anyways,
lower
right?
body. Yeah.
So, and they're thud sessions. They're not taking people to the ground,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't mean they weren't physical, right? So the intensity ratcheted up immediately on Saturday. You can tell these guys were chomping at the bit to get physical and have some contact and play real football, right? Um, the most physical, or the most, I don't want to say the most physical, but some of the most intense sessions that were basically no different than a game in regards to physicality were the special team sessions.
Okay.
And they were working on gunner releases and then holding up the gunners.
Mm-hmm.
And it was getting intense. I mean, they were going at it. The coaches were intense, the players were intense, the effort was intense.
Who
It
was
was a
out
lot
on
of
the edge?
it was a lot of fun to watch. Every skill guy you can imagine was taking reps
Okay.
at both the gunner position as well as trying to prevent the gunners from getting off the line on the defensive side of the ball. So it wasn't. I mean, that's the other thing is that one of my biggest takeaways from the first 4 days or those 4 days was that every single second is scripted in practice. I mean, they start and they go, as many as, they go from like 15 to 18 sessions, and each session is about 5 to 10 minutes long, and they're nonstop. I mean, they're moving, they're not walking, they're maximizing reps. The quarterbacks, if they're doing routes on air, you've got 4 receivers and a running back and all 5 quarterbacks back there, and on every single rep, somebody's throwing the ball and catching the ball.
Yep.
You have 5 guys throwing the ball and 5 guys catching the ball on every single rep. It's impressive. I mean, they're a well-oiled machine. Your question, you were asking about the quarterbacks?
Yeah, so I think that I don't want to bury the lead because everybody wants to know about the quarterbacks. And so, some of what I was hearing and like what we were talking about is that both quarterbacks had good throws, both quarterbacks had bad throws. So if you were going to categorize Will Howard's 4 days in front of you, A, B, C, D, or F, where would you rate him and why?
I wasn't expecting you to ask me to grade these guys.
Okay, don't grade him. Just tell us about him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you need to keep things in context here, man. This is the first 4 days of fall camp.
Exactly.
Right? So I think all the quarterbacks flashed at some point. I think all the quarterbacks had some struggles at some points, some more than others. I mean, Aaron and Lincoln are they're noticeably and obviously, 4 and 5. Right?
Okay.
Lincoln is certainly athletic, but you can tell that he's still, in my opinion, adjusting to the speed of the game.
Sure, he's from South Dakota, man. We know this. We know this.
South Dakota Heisman.
Yeah.
I think what a lot of people want to say, know about is, listen, here's the deal. Julian is really, really talented. He is really good for his age in the pocket. He's comfortable in the pocket. He makes really quick decisions, but he's still 18, man.
Yep.
I mean, he's still adjusting to the speed of this game.
For
and
sure.
There are times where, he really, really flashes. And then there's times like on Sunday where he, basically handed the ball off to Jermaine Matthews on a pick six. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just you have true freshman moments like that.
Oh, for sure.
Um,
I mean, let's be honest.
Do I think that Julian is competing for the starting job? Absolutely not.
No.
Could I be talked into him competing for the backup job? Maybe as the season progresses, but to start the season, no, he's not. He's not ready.
Yeah. So
hold on. And I just want people to understand this. Like, if Julian on this team that is so loaded, if Julian is not ready to be the starter game one, then he's not ready to be the backup game one. Because let's look at Aaron Rodgers with the Jets last year. The guy popped his Achilles tendon on the 4th play of the season. Okay. So if Julian's not ready to be the starter in game one, you have to think about what happens if the starter goes down on the first play of the year. Is he suddenly ready?
Mm-hmm.
No, he's not. So, the starting, the QB1 and QB2 battle is between Will and Devin. And, I think the writing is on the wall that it's going to be Will based on what I witnessed over the last day and a half.
Okay. Well, that was actually what I was going to point out was that like two things. Firstly, a lot of times like Julian Sand would just be normally getting to campus if he didn't enroll early. And then two, you are one play away from your backup quarterback. That's just football. We all know that. Yeah. So you've got to go into the season with your top 2 guys that can lead the team, that are ready to lead the team. And so one of the things that one of our followers and subscribers and our avid followers, I think it was Doug Shepard, pointed out that everything he's seen from Will Howard seems like he's just a click slow. Like everything's a little bit behind or a little bit high. Did you see that when you watched, besides the couple of the slant routes?
I think what he's okay. I didn't know what he meant there. So he's talking about on timing with the receivers.
Correct.
There are instances of that still. There still are definitely examples of that with him and every other quarterback. I think Devin's got the best chemistry and timing with the receivers. Devin, by far, and I honestly don't think it's close, has the best deep ball on the team and has the most willingness to throw the deep ball. And I would say Julian is second when it comes to willingness to take a shot.
Okay.
Of the top 3 guys, Will is third. Now I have a theory on that.
Okay.
I think the only way Will Howard was not going to get the QB1 start was if he turned the ball over a bunch in camp.
Okay.
And I think he knows that. Okay. So I did not see him taking any unnecessary risk or shots down the field.
Okay.
Over the course of the 4 days.
All right.
I mean, I would have to say Devin took more shots down the field than all the other 4 guys combined in live sessions. And when I say live sessions, I'm talking 7-on-7 or 11-on-11. Okay.
All right.
What I'm seeing from Will is that Will is he's a lot better than I anticipated throwing the ball inside of 20 yards and in between the numbers. He can make quick decisions. He can go through his progressions. And he can move around in the pocket. And when I say move around in the pocket, I'm not talking about Johnny Manziel.
Right, I get it. JT Barrett moving
antics.
around. Yeah.
I'm talking about manipulating the pocket and, his protection to extend a play or to allow a play to develop, which is what we didn't see at all last year. McCord was a one read guy.
Right.
Will is really, really good at that. And as a result of that, we are already light years better than we were last year.
Okay.
And talking about compared to last year. There's a lot of people that, for whatever reason, there's just a lot of hate towards Devin. And my theory is that McCord was so unpopular last year that a lot of people are upset that Devin wasn't better to have overcome that. What people need to understand is, people make progress from year to year. Like Devin's not the same quarterback he was last year. And to the credit of the guys on the beat, like Berm and Landis and Biddle and all those guys, like, they've all said like Devin is noticeably better than last year. I mean, he's got another year under his belt. He's got another offseason under his belt. He's got, maturity under his belt. Like he's better than he was last year. So as a result, I feel really, really good about either one of those guys getting the shot.
Okay.
I still have my preference.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen. I think my preference is well rooted in theory.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think it's going to happen.
Okay.
And I understand why it won't.
Yeah. I have so on top of that, so you mentioned manipulating the pocket, moving around a little bit, but one of the things that, you and I and Juck were talking about was you guys are both like extremely high on the starting five, or what we assume will be the starting five of the offensive line, and that it looks better than we ever could have expected. However, there's some concern around if something happens to Fryer or Simmons, man, are we hosed? So where are you at? Are you still feeling that way? You've had a day to kind of get home, see the fam, take a breath. Are you still feeling good about the offensive line now?
I feel really good about the offensive line. I feel really good about the starting five. I feel really good about the depth on the interior of the offensive line. I'm really concerned about the depth at tackle.
Are you so let's do the starting five. So we've got Simmons, Donnie, Seth, Carson, and Fryer.
I think right guard is still to be determined.
Okay.
I think the chemistry between Carson and Seth is probably the best. Right? That's what a lot of people need to understand about the offensive line. Like, it's a unit. You've heard me say before that the offensive line, more than any other position group on the team, is better as the sum of the parts than any one part.
Right.
And the chemistry between who you're next to on the line plays a big part in your individual success and the unit success.
Okay.
The chemistry between Seth and Carson, with Seth at center and Carson at guard, seems to be better than any other combination. With that being said, I think Tegra probably looks a little bit better individually than Carson right now.
So you don't feel like, so in spring practice, all the hype was for about 12 of the practices, Luke Montgomery's at right guard, Luke Montgomery's at right guard. Do you think that this is more long-term? They're thinking Seth's a fifth-year senior, Luke is going to be the center, because you said he repped at center. So the interior, there's depth in the interior. You have Ian Moore, you have Luke Montgomery, you have Tegra Shabola.
Tackle.
Huh?
Ian Moore's a tackle.
I thought they were going to play him at guard.
He's lined up. The guy's 6'6", 317. He's a tackle.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm mistaken then. So, yeah. But we have the Armstrong twins that we brought in last year. So the cupboard is very, very thin, or very empty at tackle after the first two. And you don't think Tegra could slide out for a game at right tackle?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not right now. Look, I need to qualify this. So I think the depth at tackle right now is a concern. I think the future of that position is more solid than the current depth. Does that make sense?
It does, because they're young.
Because they're young, yeah. And like the Armstrongs, man, they are incredibly underrated for what their ranking was. And they are big, okay? And they are mean. And they will fight you. And I love that. Yeah.
I ran into them when they were visiting for the spring game a couple years ago when they were seniors, like face to face. And I mean, I did this. and they were really kind. They were like, "Hi," but
they're big kids, and
Yeah.
I mean they have embraced mixed program. They've put on the weight, and it's not bad weight; it's good weight.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the starting five outside of right guard, I think it's solidified. I'll be shocked if Seth's not at center.
Okay.
I just will. To Juck's dismay, sorry, buddy. I did see some low snaps.
Yeah.
And there was one session that was recency bias on Sunday that it really stuck out. That there were a ton of low snaps in a 7-on-7 session.
Okay.
From both Seth and Luke, for that matter. But I'm really big on perspective.
Yeah.
And context. You need to understand, like, these guys are getting as many snaps in one session than they are in a game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you have 15 to 18 sessions in one practice.
Yep.
So if somebody's watching for low snaps, you're going to see low snaps throughout the course of the day.
Yep.
But when you consider how many reps they're getting and how many snaps they're taking or doing in a single session, let alone a practice, let alone over the course of 4 days, it's like it would be like if you saw, if a quarterback threw as many passes throughout the course of a day as they did in a season, you're going to see some interceptions.
Yeah.
You're going to see some bad decisions.
Yeah. I get it. I think I always reference back to having Dave Osment on from the Alabama Football Podcast, who watched Seth for years. That he's good for about one bad snap a game. Like, that's kind of what he said. So that's kind of what my expectation is. If you have 30 some games that you've watched a player and you say, hey, he's good for about one bad snap a game, that's kind of what I expect. Now, not saying you can't get better, but that's kind of where I landed.
Let's be honest. Like, I think if you watch, if you watched every college football game throughout the course of a season,
yep,
you're probably going to see one bad snap a game from every center.
Yeah, they're kids. I know Seth's like kind of one of the old men on the team, but he's still a kid. He's 23.
Yeah.
So, in my mind anyways, but so okay, so that leads me to running backs. And so one of the things we talked about was,
well, hold on 1 second.
All right, sorry, sure.
Going back to the quarterback reps, to be clear, Devin went first in the drills on Sunday, but when it came to the 11-on-11 team sessions, which were the most intense 11-on-11 sessions over the course of those 4 days, and it's the way they ended practice on Sunday, knowing that there was an off day on Monday, Will took all but one snap with the ones.
Okay.
And the other snap went to Julian, and that's when he threw his pick six to Jermaine, and he immediately went to run a lap, and Will came back in, which was interesting that Devin didn't come in at that point. Will did.
Mm.
So I think the writing's on the wall. I am intrigued to hear what happens on Saturday when they go live. And we're not going to know.
No, we're not going to know.
We're it's not open to the media, I don't think. I think
not that I'm aware of.
I think the next practice that's open to the media is on Thursday.
It is because I heard somebody posted that this morning. It might have been Tom Orr, but the media was at practice today, but for post practice interviews because there was some stuff coming out. But
so here's what I can say about the media.
Sure,
I was following along to what they were posting.
Mm-hmm.
And comparing it to what I saw. I think it was pretty fair.
Okay.
I think it was pretty fair. And mostly accurate.
Okay.
I do think the Will Howard 80-yard run got dramatized a little bit.
Because you can't tackle him?
Well, because you can't tackle him. And let me just set the stage. Let me set the table. It's my new favorite phase from practice. Yeah. I'm going to set the table.
Set it up.
So they were coming, the fields are sandwiched between the Woody and the Schottenstein Center, right? Schott.
I should have grabbed a picture, Dan, so we could show them what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because there's really 4 fields, right? If I remember
there's
correctly.
4 fields, and there's 2 grass fields, 2 turf fields side by side. And they're on the grass fields all 4 days. And and they're sandwiched between, on one end you got the Woody, and on the other end you got the Schottenstein Center. So you would often hear the guy that was kind of the orchestra of practice in the tower telling the guys what we're up, what session's up next and where they're going to start
left
their from.
hash,
They would always say
coming
out of the shot or coming out of the Woody. That would mean that, coming out of the shot, they started at that end of the field.
Mm-hmm.
So on that particular run, which I'm going to give you the full lowdown on that run because there were some impressive parts of that run.
Okay.
But just like Disney did with the Miracle on Ice movie, there were a few dramatizations in the way that was reported.
Okay.
They're coming out from the Schottenstein Center of the field. The media is all the way out, like not even in the back of the end zone, but probably about 10 to 15 yards behind the end zone by the Woody.
Oh, on the other side. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So they're watching that play develop from a full football field length away. I was literally 5 yards off the line of scrimmage on the sideline from that.
Okay.
Okay. And so we were about 5 to 10 yards off the sideline. So I'm standing right there. It was a called QB sweep run. Okay. It wasn't a power. It wasn't off guard or anything else like that. It was off tackle between the tackle off the end.
Was it a zone read or
no? It wasn't even zone read.
Just a straight pull.
It was a quarterback run.
Okay.
It was a QB. I would call it a QB sweep with a lead with a running back as a lead blocker. And he got the ball, he immediately tucked it and ran. Okay. I'm really, really confident that if they were allowed to tackle, he would have been tackled. Probably within 5 to 8 yards of the line of scrimmage. But he had a burst, man. Yeah. When he got that ball and he took off and he started running, and once he was about 8 to 10 yards downfield, he took off.
Tom Orr posted that he ran 22 miles an hour.
Well, that apparently was said by Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
It wasn't on that run. Chip Kelly apparently said in today's press conference that Will was clocked at 22 miles per hour at some point. I don't know if it was in drills, practice. It might have been on that play. I don't know. But
that's moving.
I think what happened there was I think Will saw an opportunity to show a little something, and he turned it on, and he did outrun a lot of the players. Now, I did see one report from Dylan Davis. He actually said this on Juck's show. He said Lathan Ransom ran him down at about the 10 to 15 yard line after about 70 yards. He's the only one that reported that. I couldn't see that because the tower was in my way. Yeah, so I couldn't see the end of it. All I saw was everybody, I heard everybody oohing and on. And then Will, he came back running probably 1/2 to 3/4 speed back to the team.
Okay.
At the Schottenstein side of the field, because they don't move the ball. They do everything from one position, and they announce they're practicing certain things. So right. You'll hear the guy say, it's 3rd and 6, it's 3rd and 8, it's 3rd and 4. They're practicing situational type plays, and they're calling plays based on that situation. And then what was kind of cool is that, Will came back and he was gassed. So he sat out the rest of that series, and Devin jumped in and ran with the ones. So the reports that Devin didn't get any snaps with the ones on that day was wrong.
Yeah.
Devin finished that entire series with the ones, and he also ran with the ones earlier in the day. He had 2 really nice balls to Emeka, deep balls to Emeka. That also entailed nice catches on Emeka's part. But Devin throws a really nice deep ball. He gets it out there to where only the receiver's going to catch it. The receivers are either going to get to it, or it's going to be nobody else is going to get to it. So it was kind of cool. Devin, it was kind of and I heard Landis talk about this, I think, and he's like, it was kind of cool. It was they're trading haymakers, right? Will made that really, really nice run, and Devin got in there and said, well, watch me. And he made a really nice deep ball to Emeka. So, it was kind of cool to see that in person and feel it, in person.
Okay.
But, to be fair, Will's got wheels, man.
Yeah.
Like
All right.
we've seen highlights of him rip off 70 and 80-yard runs like
Sure.
against Texas. And
Sure.
I mean, I saw that. I saw that in person. It was impressive.
Okay. Well, I don't want to spend too much time on running backs. We know who they are. We know who the top two are. We know who the top three are.
Yeah, I do want to talk about him a little bit because
Yeah. Well, I wanted to bring up one thing. So we were very concerned when TC Caffey went down. And then I saw a picture of Rashid Sese out of he was a preferred walk on. And I thought originally looking at it, it was Peoples. It's not. It's not. He's from Western Muskingum. Runner up for Mr. Ohio in 2023, had a monster senior season. I wrote down the notes so I didn't mess this up, but he's from Muskingum Valley League, 42 touchdowns.
In Zanesville, right?
Yeah, near Zanesville. He finished with over 1,000 yards, 27 touchdowns on 136 carries. He caught 28 passes for 454 yards and threw a pair of touchdowns. He also returned a pair of kickoffs for touchdowns. This is he is their team. And he made 55 tackles and had a pick six. Yeah. And he averaged over 7 yards a carry, and he totaled 63 touchdowns in his career. So with over 2,300 yards. So like he has oak trees for legs. That's why I thought it was Peoples.
Well, I'll tell you what, when I was there live, I thought the same thing the first time I saw him in one of the drills to start practice. Because I was set up the running back drills. The first day I watched the O-line drills, and then the last 3 days, because I knew where I kind of got a lay of the land, and I knew where I kind of needed to set up shop to see what I wanted to see during the team periods. But it just so happened to be where the running backs did their drills in the morning. And the first time I saw the kid, he had his shirt kind of like up like Zeke, and all I could see was the top of the 3 and the top of a 0. I thought it was 20. I thought it was Peoples. But then when people stood next to him, because he wears 30 and Peoples wears 20, then I saw people standing next to him. I'm like, holy cow, man, his lower body, he's bigger than Peoples is. It kind of made Peoples look small, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because Peoples is huge. So he, on the rosters that, they're handing out like, rosters with numbers and names and stuff so you can follow it. They had him as a DB.
Okay.
I think he was recruited as an athlete, but they had him as a DB. But he's over there with the running backs, and he had a red shirt on the entire day. He was not going back and forth. So I think that's the fifth guy.
The emergency guy. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't want to call him an emergency guy. I think he's the fifth guy. Like I think he will fill that. Like Dallin Hayden was the fifth guy.
Yeah. His
first year, and last year it was TC Caffey.
Yeah.
And I think that. We're fine. I think we're good with depth there. But, Ron and Pat were talking this morning on the morning roast.
Yep.
They've started up their live show at like 7 or 8 in the morning now. You got to watch it. It's really good. Those guys are really, really good. It's usually Ron James and Q. But Q's out in Arizona, so he had Pat on today because of the time difference, I would imagine.
That'd be early out west.
But Pat Cahill from Menace was on with him today. But, they made a really good point. Ron made a really astute point. Like, usually in the third or fourth quarter of these early blowouts or any blowout, your first guy is on the bench and your number 2s and 3s and maybe your 4s are getting some run, right?
Yep.
But if Q and Trey are 1A and 1B, which they are, that means your number 3 and 4 guy are now your traditional number 2 and 3 guys in blowouts. I thought it was a fantastic point. So, 3 and 4 is Peoples and Sam Williams Dixon, and 5 is Cisse. So those guys like Peoples and SWD, they're going to get some run this year.
Yeah, we talked about that actually. You and I did, because I said we talked about what freshmen were going to play the most plays, and you and I both talked about how the fact that James Peoples and Sam Williams Dixon are essentially like, again, they're going to be the number 2 and number 3 backs because we have 2 starters and Q and Trey. So I agree with you. I think it's a good problem to have, but I think Cisse adds a little bit of a comfort there. Like I don't want James Peoples with 5 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter playing against somebody else's, third team that, and twist an ankle. And then we're like, oh shit, Yeah. Excuse my language, but because that's probably what would come out of my mouth if that happened. I don't want that.
You're gonna get us in trouble with YouTube while we're trying
YouTube's
going to
yell at me now. I'm going to get dinged.
Take that back.
Yeah, I'll delete it.
So I think you can bleep it out.
Yeah.
But to talk about the running backs, though, I want to make a point. Like on Sunday, I was tweeting pretty much. I wasn't tweeting play by play, but I gave a play by play summary.
Yep.
Of the live sessions, and I just want to clarify. Whenever I said run, it was an actual running play. It wasn't a QB run.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going hard, man. They were going live. And while they weren't tackling, they were thumping and they were wrapping up. Our run game looks awesome. Like our offensive line, a lot of people came away with my summary of like, oh, God, our offensive line is trash again because there were some sacks in there at one point. And to be clear, again, I'm setting the table. They were working on tempo for the second session. And the first session, each quarterback got 5 plays, and then they rolled it with another unit, right? When on those plays where I said run, our offense was eaten. Like it wasn't, it was a defensive day from a pressure perspective when they knew at one point, the defense knew at one point that the offense was just going to pass. Like they were working on tempo passing game, right?
Yep.
And Knowles was sending the house.
Okay.
I mean, they were blitzing on every single play. When I say blitz, it wasn't one guy. Like he sometimes was sending 2 or 3 guys, and the pressure was intense. And it's the 4th day of camp.
Yeah.
Right. But when in the first team session on Sunday, when they were actually running the ball, when they were mixing in run and pass, mostly run, our run game looked good, man. I mean, our offensive line held their own. Our offensive line looked really good against the number 1 defense, I think, in the country, but certainly our number 1 defense.
You beat me to the punch a little bit. So my question was going to be, is the defense that Ohio State's offense is practicing against the best defense that they are going to play all year?
Yes. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'll be shocked if when the dust settles at the end of the year, it's not the best defense in the country. Come on. I mean, let's think about this. And I know our friends from up north are going to say, no, we've got the best defense. You might have the best defensive. You might have the best defense that we're going to face during the season.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm convinced our offense will be going against the best defense every day in practice.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Okay. Right. And yes, Graham and Jenkins at defensive tackle are going to be formidable, and they're 2 of the top 10 defensive players in the country, and Will Johnson's back there as a safety. But collectively, let's be objective here for a second. Okay. We were the 3rd ranked defense in the country last year. Okay, 3rd ranked defense in the country. Yep. I want to say we were the number 1 passing defense in the country. I think it ended number 1 passing, number 3 overall, number 3 scoring. We've brought back everybody except a defensive tackle and our 2 linebackers and a safety. And let's talk about, so we're replacing Mike Hall with, I think,
Ty Hamilton.
Ty Hamilton's going to he's going to get the start, but there's going to be a heavy rotation at that position, and you're going to be rotating in with people such as Harold Canoe and Caden McDonald and Jason Moore.
Yep.
I don't want to say we're not going to have a drop off there, because Mike Hall, if you pay attention to what he's doing in NFL in his first NFL camp, there's starting to be whispers of a little Aaron Donald, which is kind of crazy.
He's got that quick first step, man.
Yeah, but okay, so I'm going to say it's a wash, if not an upgrade, due to the rotation.
I think the linebacker's an upgrade because of what.
So let's go there. Now we've got Cody and Sonny replacing Steele and Tommy. I'm sorry, I love Steele and Tommy, man. They were warriors for us.
Yep.
But athletically, they do not hold a candle to CJ and Sonny, and then throw in or Cody and Sonny, who Sonny will be starting. If they start 2 linebackers, Sonny's the starter. But then you throw in CJ and Arvell, and then even Gabe Powers. the athletic ability of those 4 or 5 guys
Yeah.
compared to Steele and Tommy is not even close.
And
And then let's get to that other 4th guy that's not
oh
a
yes,
returning
him.
starter. Oh, by the way, we're adding Caleb Downs to the 3rd ranked defense in the country. Dude, Caleb's down. He's different, bro. He's different. I know we talked about this on Friday's show that dropped on Saturday. He's just different, man. His ability to identify and then get to the ball. It's not just elite. It's uber elite.
Yeah.
It's different, and he's going to be such a difference maker for us back there.
Well,
he's a year older.
Yeah.
You know, our friends up north are going to say they're going to show all these clips of him getting run over and run out of the play and this and that. And he's a year older now.
Wasn't he a true freshman last year too? On top of everything else,
freshman. He's 18 years old
and starting for Alabama. Okay, so yeah, I mean, and it's not going to hurt to have a 5th-year senior at linebacker in Cody Simon who's been around and seen a bunch. But then you add Caleb Downs, they'll have the defense in the right position. You know, we're not going to have these people that are flat on their face while somebody's streaking down the middle of the field wide open, unless somebody slips. But you know, there's a lot to like about what this defense is. I did see too, and I wanted to ask you your perspective. So there was some videos that came out during some of the sessions, and I think it was Saturday or Sunday, of Kenyatta Jackson like bulldozing some people. Did he look bigger to you? Because he was lean last year and even the year before. So how's he look?
He's a big kid.
Yeah.
You know, and he got some mention from Knowles.
Yeah.
I mean, Knowles point blank said Kenyatta showed up.
Yeah.
They're rotating a lot.
Okay.
But man, that defense is deep, man.
Yep. All right.
Defensive deep. And Edric Houston, he's gonna get some run.
Yep.
He's gonna get a lot of playing time.
Yep. I have no doubt about that. I mean, you brought him up on your players at the top 6 that you thought would get some run this year as freshmen. So, so I had 2 things. Number one, Jeremiah Smith makes the top 10 freak athletes, and apparently is the 2nd fastest team on the team for wide receivers behind Jaden Ballard. And so look, he made a crazy catch. Did you see it? Like tip and yeah. Anyways, but I'll leave that for another topic. But that's fast for an 18-year-old man. Like that's flying. And I think I wrote down the actual miles per hour in my notes. Yeah, 23.39, and a 355 squat, 530 broad jump, 10-10 vert.
355 bench.
Yes. Sorry, Woody bench. Yeah, I've said that backwards.
355 bench, and I want to say somebody said he squatted like 490 or 500.
It's 530 squat.
Yeah, 530 squat. Okay.
Excuse me. Yes, 355 for the bench.
Hey,
my notes ran together, and 530 for the squat.
He's 18.
Yeah.
So I was watching Juck's show the other day, and I actually put this in the comments, and I didn't see him reply to it.
Juck.
But it was on the Menace platform, and I think he's getting a few more comments than he did on his own show, I think.
Probably.
But remind me to circle back to Menace because I want to give a shout out. But he was talking about how people weren't believing him when it came to the hype of JJ, and he was having a hard time to try to give them an analogy.
Okay.
And this is what I came up with. Imagine if LeBron James went and played college out of high school. That's JJ as a true freshman. Think about what LeBron did in the NBA as a rookie, as an 18-year-old rookie. And now imagine if he did that, if he went to college instead.
Oh, okay.
And did that, and was that same player in college for a year.
Goodness.
That's JJ.
Gosh.
I mean,
yeah,
that's the only way I can describe it.
I'm going to throw this up on the screen while we're talking because since we were talking about Will Howard during a sprint this offseason.
Yeah, it was it wasn't that run on Saturday.
No, during a sprint.
I think Chip said that in the press conference today. I got to go watch it as soon as we're done.
Yeah, he did. I was just I saw it come across my timeline. So
He's got some long speed, man.
yeah,
He's
long
got
strides.
some.
Well, 6'4", you got to have long
Well,
legs.
I mean, he's got. I mean, the strides help, but I'm talking about like long speed, right? Like
Okay.
when
Oh,
when he
down the
turned
field.
that corner and took off down the sideline, he was moving. Okay, now going back to that, we kind of glossed over this. I feel really, really, really good about either Will or Devin leading this team to a national championship.
Mm-hmm.
I feel better about Will than I did going into the practices when I saw him operate in the pocket, and he was a lot more accurate in between the numbers and 20 yards in. I'm still really concerned about downfield throwing and accuracy.
Okay.
I'm really concerned if we're either in a shootout or in a situation where we have to throw the ball downfield to win a game.
Okay.
Having said that, because he just, I mean, it's the weakness in his game.
Mm.
Having said that, I have a lot of faith in Chip scheming it up. And when you look at what he did with DTR at UCLA,
Yeah.
like if you go back there and he schemed up a lot of deep shots for him that were, easy.
Yeah.
And I do I'm not confident in Will's ability to throw guys open. This is probably a better way to say this. I have concerns about Will's ability to throw people open downfield.
Okay.
Like a CJ Stroud. He doesn't.
Yeah.
It's just not him.
Okay.
It's not part of his game. It's not a strength. It's a weakness. I think Chip's going to be able to scheme up things to where he's got downfield shots that he's not having to throw the guys open. They're just going to be open.
Okay. I have one other question that not offense, defense. So I think somebody shared clips of people catching punts and punt returns, and they were making moves, and it wasn't during the thud session. It was just stuff. And I saw Caleb Downs do it. I saw Brandon Ennis do it. I think Jaden Ballard caught a few. There was somebody else, Mylan Graham maybe. So did you get a look at it? JJ was in there too.
Oh yeah. I was right there. It was right in front of me.
So that I'm sure it's just for a topic.
The guys back there returning punts were Brandon Ennis, Emeka, JJ, Ballard, Bryson Rogers, and Mylan Graham was back there a little bit.
Yeah.
And then Caleb, I've seen clips of Caleb returning punts. It was on the far field. It wasn't during the specials session.
Okay.
That I saw. Ennis should be our punt returner, in my opinion. Once that ball's in his hand, he makes punt returns about making that first guy miss.
Yep.
And he's just got it, man. Like he's very, very quick. He's very sudden. He's very twitchy.
Okay.
He's really good back there. I'd be shocked if he's not returning punts for us. I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be surprised if we see JJ back there. And a lot of people are probably going to say, don't do that. He's just really good, man.
Yep.
If you're looking to put your best guy back there, it might be him.
I get it. I was just, so I'm on the complete other side of Juck on this, where I don't want Caleb Downs returning punts at all. Not even anywhere. I don't want him anywhere near it. But yeah, so I was just curious about that. And then, so Dan, I know you had a good time and you had some nice hospitality. So you said you wanted to give a shout out as we wrap up our show.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out. Friday afternoon, and I think I mentioned this on Saturday, because when did we film? When did we record? Friday night?
Friday night. I don't remember talking about it, but that was a long time. It seems like years ago already.
I spent the day on Friday over at the Menace studio, and I hung out and I watched Chris and Zach and Pat do their show, and had lunch with Chris afterwards. Great guys, man. Really cool. Chris is good people. And then he was out there on Saturday. He came out and watched practice on Saturday, and he's a little mini celebrity, man. People were coming up to him and getting pictures, and one kid asked him to sign his helmet, and while that was happening, another kid came up and said, "Who are you?" And Chris is like, "Man, I'm nobody, kid. I'm nobody important, just being really humble.
Mm-hmm.
But just good people, man. Just, talk to me a little bit about how they started and what it's turned into. And that Menace platform, man, they're getting like 120,000 downloads a week, Monday through Friday.
That's wild.
They're building something really cool over there. So I'm even more excited for Juck now that he's over there on the platform and doing good things. And
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a good addition to them.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Chuck does such a good job. But yeah, Chris, anything I ever see from him, he's kind, he's humble, and like he's just he's a like. I had a friend, he moved to Atlanta, but he would always say he's a real one. Yeah. So, and
here's what I'll say about Zach. I've met Zach twice now. He's been the same way off camera. Like he's a good dude off camera, man. I mean, I know what the controversy is there and the history is and everything else like that, but he doesn't thumb his nose at you. He talks to you. He will answer questions, about the podcast world and the industry and what they've done and where they're going and things like that. And, I would even be willing to say that he's a little bit more soft-spoken off camera than he is on camera.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, if you have questions for us, drop them in the comments, send them to us on Twitter at StrikeDog, at IceShark8, or at the best damn pod in the land. It's TBDITL. Yep. You can find those links also now. I've added those to our homepage on YouTube, so you can find us easier. But Dan, any last words?
No, I was remiss. I would be remiss if I didn't mention my boy Zeke as well. Was out there on Saturday, and then Terry was out there Thursday and Saturday. So from College Football Stop.
Yep, we it's funny how small the pod world is, man.
And if he's still listening, because it's at the end of the show, Justin Jean, who listens to our show and sent out a bunch of videos and updates and stuff like that throughout the day. He was there, I think Friday, and then he came back on Sunday, and we were hanging out a little bit.
Sounds like a really good time, and I'm glad you got to go. I wish I could have went instead of being in Michigan, but it was still family camp, so we still had a good time. But all right, guys. Well, don't forget to join us on Friday again for Buckeye Friday. We'll have more news, notes, practice stuff, and all the other things that come along with this time of year as we ramp up our Blitz to 500 and our countdown to August 31st. It's getting close, Dan. We're creeping up on it. 25 days. So you guys stay safe, enjoy your week, and as always, go Bucks.
Go Bucks.